Greetings, beautiful ones. Thank you for joining me in my channel and sharing space with me in this eternal now moment that we share. I have been prompted to tell this story for quite some time now, and again, the shadow and the ego have been trying their best to deter me from sharing. And one of the tactics being used was, what's your angle? What's the purpose of sharing this story? How is this gonna, affect anything or help anyone? And, my mind went off on loops for a while with all of that before recognizing and accepting the awareness through my guidance that maybe there is no point, but there are codes present in this story for you, for any and all who would tune in, will tune in. There are the words that I'm speaking, and there's the energy behind the words. And there's so much potent, powerful information in, around, and through this experience for whomever this is for. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear. So this is a story and an experience that I would like to share about what I feel to be my biggest, most powerful and potent initiation thus far in this incarnation. And the cool thing was that I was told I was being initiated, which is nice because then when things occur, things unfold, it's not a blindsiding. Still leans towards blindsiding, but it's not complete and total. You have like a little bit of, oh, right, this is that thing happening. Got it. So, trigger warning. This may trigger the shit out of people. Just, it may. Because of, I won't even get into it. Just warning, there may be triggers that come up. It may cause you to question things, to look at patterns within self and within others, judge self, other, many things may come up. And so just be prepared. But it's all meant to be, right? If you're here with me and you're, willing to dive into the story with me, then it is for a reason. So it was about 4 months ago that I was told I was going to be initiated. I was in a very transitionary space, I would say. Kind of feel like I've been in a very transitionary space for a long time now, but it felt particularly transitionary at the time, kind of in between what's going on, experiencing heartache, experiencing spiritual death, ego death, experiencing lack to a huge degree, financially, just emotionally, just the whole spectrum of lack was being highlighted pretty intensely, right? And so at this particular time, I was living with a group of people in a city in Texas, and really great people. We all, were very strong mirrors for each other in many ways, but for the most part, everybody was getting along fine. I was really barely scraping by, and even that's kind of an overstatement of how I was making rent and things like that. But I was guided very strongly after being told I was being initiated that I needed to take my daughter to Florida from Texas to see her family that she had not seen in over a year, including her grandmother, her aunt, cousins, grandpa, and brother. All of these wonderful people that my daughter had not seen in a very long time. This opportunity to go and provide her with this experience of connectivity made itself known. And I'm sitting there at that point with literally 23 cents in my bank account. 23 cents in my bank account. And so when the opportunity to go to Florida presented itself, I was like, hey, I believe through life experience that if you're meant to be someplace, you're going to go. If there's a calling, a beaconing from a sacred site for me to be there because I need to share my codes with the land and vice versa, I'll get there. And I've lived it so many times, right? But it's been a while at this point. It's been quite some time. And life has been lifing pretty hardcore for a while. And I have, at that point, lost touch with that just strong inner knowing of, hey, you need to get someplace, you're going to get there. Because you're not really the doer, you're just being done thinking that you're the doer, right? So I'm like, okay, Spirit, if I'm supposed to go to Florida, yeah, get me there. And then I tell the people inviting me to Florida, I'll get back to you, I'll let you know. Well, a week later, hey, you coming? And Spirit, as clear as day, is like, say yes. Yes, we're coming. Oh my God, I'm so happy to hear it. Oh my God, celebration ensues, right? And inside I'm like, wow, okay, this is interesting. We're going, right, okay. And then the next thing I know, the brother's mother is calling to make sure that, it would be okay if I helped to get the brother also the rest of the way to Florida on this date at this time. Spirit's like, say yes. And I'm like, wow, okay, yes, sure, yep, I will meet you in Tallahassee, and I will take the children to Florida. And so get off the phone, and I'm like, 23 cents in the bank account, no income that I'm really aware of. What's happening? And again, the initiation comes through very clearly. You are being initiated. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And then I hear very clearly, hey, do you remember that one time that you didn't have any money, but you needed to get to Mount Shasta, and Mount Shasta really needed you to get to it, and then a week later you had the money and you were on the trip? And I'm like, yeah, I remember that. Okay. Hey, remember that one time? And then it was like I was given a life review of all the times that God has swooped in at the 11th hour and done whatever God needed to do to make everything okay at that time. And I was told that this was one of those times, and that I was going to need to step into a degree of trust that I had not ever stepped into to quite this extent, and that it was going to be okay. And so I was told that with 23 cents in my bank account and 53 miles worth of gas in the gas tank, that I was to take my daughter and take off east to Florida. And so I woke up that morning and the signs just flooding in the whole time, like universal winks, undeniable. Everywhere I looked, I looked, it was like, hey, you're okay, you're good, just keep going, we gotta go, we're going, we're doing this thing. You are going to trust. You are going to remember what it's like to trust. And the reason is so you know that you're not the one in charge, that you're an active participant, and obviously a necessity, a necessary part of the experience, because you're the one perceiving the reality, but that you take a back seat with all your control tactics and all of your thoughts about how things should be, would be, could be. Step aside and let the universe show you movement and get you to where you need to go. And so I took off that morning with my daughter. All of the things that I could be thinking about, oh my God, you irresponsible mother. You could be, put away for this. You are crazy. What are you thinking? Oh my God, blah, 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 blah. But there was this pillar within me that was standing firmly planted in the ground. unshakable that said this is happening. Like we're doing this. And so really funny because my daughter wakes up this morning and she says to me, "Hey mom, where does so-and-so live?" And she was referring to a girlfriend of mine that she had not ever actually met in person, who lived in the vicinity of where we were living. But I found it pretty interesting that out of nowhere, on the day we're leaving to go to Florida, she asked me, "Hey, where does so-and-so live?" And I said, "Well, about 40 minutes from here. Maybe we should go see her before we leave." I'm not going to doubt this at this point because of how, not random it is. And so I reached out and so-and-so said, "Yeah, sure, come over." So I get to our friend's house and walk in, and there is who I call my spirit mama. She was my very first spiritual teacher, mentor, guide, taught me so much of what I am and what I know today. And there she is. They're related. But I wasn't expecting that she would be there. So in this moment where I am to totally throw in the white towel and, surrender to the universe to make this trip, my mommy is there, which would activate, save me, help me. I need, this, can you fix it? All these things of the past. But I'm told as we're engaging, do not tell her. You cannot tell her. You're not allowed to say anything. I mean, I could choose to say, but don't say anything. So she looks at me and she's very psychic. And she's like, "What are you doing? Where are you going? What's up?" And I'm like, taking a kiddo to Florida to see her family. Do you have the finances for that? And I'm like, "Oh my God. It's going to work out. It's going to work out." And she's just like, just deeply peering into my soul. But I made it through that experience. I did not say anything, left. So we drive, by this point, I think I had 30 miles left in the tank. And we drive to a gas station and pull up to the gas pump. And I've got 23 cents in my bank account. So I knew that I wasn't filling up the gas tank. I was also told that I wasn't to ask for assistance. I wasn't to make a sign, which I wouldn't have done anyway, but I was not to ask or prompt assistance, but I was to sit back and just be. So you can imagine there is a lot going on in my mental space. I am doubting everything, especially my own sanity, and I'm doubting everything. And I have a tremendous amount of negative emotion come through. Anger at my circumstances, anger at myself, anger at God, anger at everything, anger at her father who's not with us, anger at, anybody and everybody. The ego wanted to blame everything outside of itself for its current moment. That wasn't actually negative or positive. It's neutral, just like everything else, but my mind was going apeshit. And I was just watching it, and I was swirling in it and watching it and swirling in it. And then I'm just like, "Okay, Whitney, you have to breathe." I'm crying, And we're sitting there, and my daughter knows what's up. She's very patient. She's a very wise soul, and she's just along for the ride. She is my road dog, so to speak. Oh my God, I love this kid. She's so beautiful. She teaches me so much. And so there we are, sitting at this gas station, and there's some cats outside. So we're out of the car playing with these cats, and then somebody walks up and says, "Hey, do you need some help?" And I said, "Well, actually, I'm pretty much out of gas, and I don't have what I need to fill up the tank." "Well, here." And they hand me a $10 bill. Burst into tears. Thank you so much. I mean, so much gratitude for the kindness of human beings. And I'm like, wow. Okay. All right. So $10 in, get on the road. $10 worth of gas later, stop at the gas station, and I'm already just like, is it gonna be like this the whole time? Like $10, $10, I mean, all the way across America, because I actually have a time constraint. If I didn't have the time constraint of having to meet the brother and the brother's mother at this certain time, I think it was like the next day, right? So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. But I also knew that my guidance is infallible. I don't doubt it. I mean, yes, the ego mind will doubt, the shadow will doubt, but I, the big I that I am, does not doubt. And I was told to say yes to that meeting. And so, therefore, if that's the case, then I will be there. And so, sitting at the gas station, and things are coming up now of like tactics, like, okay, well, if I'm not near the car, then no one will ever know that I am in need of help. And I was told, you don't even expect that it's going to come from a human in your vicinity. Don't expect anything. Open up even further. And so all of these layers of belief, layers of limitation began to come up to be seen, to then be peeled away. And then someone would come, hey, are you guys okay? Do you need help? Oh, here you go. Thank you. And then, there was a few stops, right? But we've exited Texas into Louisiana. Now we're in Mississippi, right? And we come up to a gas station, and I get out, and there's this very attractive man walking a dog through the gas station, and all these other men come up and they start talking with him, and I heard him say God like 3 times in this short little walk through the parking lot to go to the store, to go to the bathroom. And so my ears are perked, and I'm like, okay, interesting. So we go in, we go to the bathroom, come out, and that guy's behind the counter. Like, he either owns the store or he's an employee of the store, and his dog is behind the counter with him. So my daughter, being the wonderful, loving animal, lover that she is, she runs over to the counter and asks about the dog, wants to pet the dog, and I'm noticing inside of myself, like, what is this about? What are we doing here? What is it now? Like, how's the lesson coming through? How can I surrender more? And then just watching the backdoor tactics of the consciousness of the shadow trying to control and manipulate and paint pictures and all of these things. And I'm just letting it dissolve as it comes, letting it dissolve. And so at one point, I walk over to the counter as well, where she's standing talking to the man with his dog. And I had a little cup of coffee that I'm drinking, and I took a sip of my coffee, and I looked down, and underneath him, where he was standing, there was a little counter that you would open to walk through and shut when you came on the other side. And there was a sign, and the sign underneath him said, "Have a conversation." And when I saw that sign, I'm taking the drink of coffee, I see the sign, and it was just like this landing happened of my higher awareness that was like, just have a conversation with this man, as if it's the only thing in the entire universe to do. Because truly, in this moment, which we know the moment is all we truly have, if that's what's happening, then be so present with this man. And he was a talker, and he was in the military previously, and so he had stories he was sharing, and he was so happily sharing them. And so it's like, okay, he's so happy sharing these stories right now. You just be present with his stories. No tactics or motives of trying to get anything or do anything. There's nowhere else to be but here. And so I just listened, and I just relaxed into the admired his beauty because he was truly beautiful. And looked at this beautiful dog and my daughter and how lit up she was. And for a moment, I forgot that we were on a mission, so to speak, and there was somewhere to be. And then right about that time, he looks at me and he says, "Are you on your way back to Texas?" And I heard very clearly, "You can tell him." And then I remembered him saying God. And I said, "Actually, funny that you ask. And since you're asking, I'll tell you something. I'm actually having a spiritual initiation of sorts at the moment, and I'm trying to get my daughter to her family in Florida, and I took off with basically no money in my bank account and 50 miles worth of gas, and I'm just surrendering, and it's really hard, but I'm doing it." And we're too far to give up now. And he goes, "Wow, I totally get it. I understand. I've been through similar things. I can help you out with the tank of gas." And so he filled our gas tank. And that got us pretty far. And it was just such a beautiful reminder of what true presence in a moment can open us up to. It's where all of our power lies as creative beings, as emotional beings, as mental beings, when we are so present in a moment without expectations, without beliefs about what things need to be like, how they should have been, could have been. When all of that dissolves and we can lean in to the moment, knowing that there's only one universal consciousness that is running through all things, and that it's benevolent and it wants to take care of us. It will take care of us if we can allow it. Wow. And so a tank of gas later comes, and it's the next stop. And here we are at this gas station. My phone has to charge, right? So that was another cute little part of the trip, was that the fuse blew in the car that had to do with the charging port for my cell phone. So I was almost dying with my phone the whole time. So every time we would stop, I would have to plug it in and then relaxing even deeper. It was just one giant reminder to relax, let go, surrender control. So we get to this next stop, and I plug the phone in, and at the time I have my laptop, or not laptop, but my iPad, right? My iPad was, in my mind at that time, my iPad was my exit out of Matrix life, out of what my ego and shadow and society would tell me I need to do for sustenance. And it was my way out by being my tool for my artistic expression. My light language codes and artwork and things were created on the iPad, and I was going to jump fully into this art expression. I'd already started to, build a clientele, and I've been doing commissions for years, but with the iPad, that was new. I had only had it for about a year, and things started to pick up, and I kind of made a declaration to myself, like, all right, we're going all in with belief and trust. And this was part of this initiation, right? Was to dive into this faith, this trust, this knowing, take your iPad with you, work on it the whole time you're gone, just pumping out these beautiful codes of light. So we stop at the gas station to charge the phone. I've got my iPad. I finish up a code for a reader that I love and adore so much. Her name's Andy from 13 Moon Tarot. Check her out if you haven't. I love her readings because they're like going on a treasure hunt. And she is so beautiful and so just warm. Like, her energy to me is amber. And I just adore her. So I was guided to create a code for her. I had just finished it, right? And, had a little snack, and then I'm like thinking again, like, okay, we need to like get back to the car so that we can get on the road, and somebody has to see us next to the car. And Spirit's like, go play. And my daughter actually asked me to play. She said, Mama, will you go over there in that patch of grass and just play with me for a while? But my shadow didn't want to hear that. My shadow wanted me to be scoping out the scene, figuring things out, doing its thing. And my daughter's like, Mom, can we just go play in the grass for a little bit? And Spirit's like, go play in the grass. And I'm like, okay. And so I leave my phone, I leave my iPad, we go into the grass. And again, I found myself immersed in the moment of play. All of this stress response and all of this, craziness that this journey had elicited in me was melted away in this moment. And I was just playing with my beautiful, amazing, inspiring daughter. And it was fun. I was enjoying myself. And when we were done playing, when the moment wrapped itself up, I went back to my phone and I looked down, and someone had ordered a commission from me. And that money would be in my bank account very shortly. It came from me opening up. The moment knew what was needed in the moment. And it didn't come through somebody walking up and handing me cash because I looked like I was in need. It came because my energetic field that holds all potential let go. The kinks and the angles and, these rigid geometries released, allowing for beautiful nature to just be. And nature receives what it needs, and nature gives. And so there it was. What I needed to go further showed up. And then there was one more gift that was given by my daughter's brother's mother. I was guided to share with her what was going on because she asked about a certain thing at a certain moment that had to do with, the scheduling and what was going on and why I was taking a little more time, than I probably would have otherwise. And she sent me what would get me the rest of the way to Florida. So upon getting to Tallahassee at night, we show up at a gas station, and there's my daughter's brother and his mother, and we're so happy to see each other, and I'm just in awe that I made it. We made it. That this is actually happening. And we're taking things in and out of the car, and we're getting things organized, and, things are being moved around, right? Well, in all of the ruckus, so to speak, of organizing the car, I put my iPad on top of the car, and I drove off with the iPad on top of the car. And I drove all the way to Grandma's house before realizing that it was gone. And I couldn't believe it. I was in shock. And I looked up on the locate my device thing, and it showed me exactly where it had fallen off of the car. Right there. It was right where we were. 250 miles away. And so the next day, I drove 250 miles back and I searched and scoured, and it was gone. It was funny too, because there was this coffee shop and they were blaring music outside of the shop that was kind of correlating with my life experience at the moment, and it was all just like, wow, Spirit, what in the world? And in my mind, heart, whatever it was like, this is your initiation. Yes, you were brave. You did the thing. You answered the call. You said, okay, I'm doing this, I'm trusting. And you have systematically learned, remembered this way of trusting and of knowing and seeing that what you need arrives, even, against all odds. What are odds? What are any of these things in comparison to Source? And also, your tool for your matrix exit is freaking gone. All of your artwork that you have been working on for a year is gone. Humble pie. Humble pie. And so for like 3 days, I was doing what I could to stay above the water. Oh, and by the way, like, rent's due back at home. And I was planning to like pull miracles through the iPad and all of the codes and things and pull rent together, but now that's literally gone and rent is due and I don't have it. I don't have it. And panic, angst, fear, anger, shame, guilt, blame, all of those programs flooded me. I was drowning in them. But for 3 days, I tried to keep my head above the water. And then day 3 arrived, and I was asked to do something that completely and totally did not align with my soul. And at first I said yes, and then Spirit was like, nah, like my soul was like, no, and it brought everything up and out. And so I had a moment where there was nobody around, there was nobody to, witness except for God and everything, and I lost it. I screamed and yelled, and this guttural, primal being within me that I call like the dragoness, she came up and through with such just primal, sacred, ancient rage. And things were spouted out, commanded of reality through me. And all of it was for the betterment of all, but it was from this place that was like, enough is enough. No more of this. Lack, poverty, never enough, always barely scraping by. We're done with that. Remember who you are and where you've come from. Your lineage, not just of this place, especially not of this place, of the cosmos. Who you are as a being, as a soul, as an emittance of God's source light in body. Remember that. And what is happening on the 3D is a dismantling of the belief that you are any of those ways of being, that you ever have been, that you must carry this torch of disgrace, this torch of false beliefs, of inadequacy, of always failing right at the last minute, which is really just a self-sabotage when you get close to having everything, i.e. the iPad. That to me was a very clear sign of the self-sabotage. Oh, look, you're so close. You made this declaration. You're diving, balls deep, so to speak, into this new reality. I trust. And then you're also going to forget your tool on top of your car. Awesome. So the level of forgiveness that I tapped into about that, I was deep. The level of forgiveness I had to tap into about having roommates and not being able to pay rent. I still owe those people to this day. There's my freaking admittance of that too. I owe people money. And there's programs within me that want me to feel guilty about it to the point of not coming on to social media and presenting myself and the wisdom that I share. It wants to keep me silenced because of how it may look to those individuals that I absolutely am paying back. I've made a payment, but I am where I am, and I'm doing what I can do. And I had to learn what it was like to be seemingly out of integrity. Integrity is so big for me. So big. And when I feel outside of integrity, I feel I must make something happen to get back into it. Even the subtlest of things. And so this was a big thing. I just had somebody commission a piece of artwork that I now can't make because the freaking tool's gone. And these things, and having to accept myself radically for what was happening, for what had happened, and also simultaneously now, more than ever, because of the choice to jump, because of the choice to trust, and also the choice to take my daughter to be with her family, which was an unforgettable, amazing time for everybody involved. I wouldn't take it back for the world. I would do it all again to experience and witness the joy that was had by my little girl and her family. But yeah, I chose to follow my guidance, and my guidance led me into further trust and knowing, into radical self-acceptance, forgiveness, and getting to a place where I realized that if I radically accept myself and the choices that I make, knowing that I'm making choices from my heart, never ever would I intend purposefully to hurt someone. If hurt happens when I'm following my soul's guidance and my connection to source, if I can accept myself, then it's not that it doesn't matter if others forgive me, but if they don't forgive me, if they're angry and resentful and mean or spiteful or whatever, it's okay. It doesn't actually have anything to do with who I am. It has more to do with who they are and how they are. And it's not negating my responsibility and the choices that I've made. It just means that I don't have to be attached to the outcome, to how another responds to me ever. I can just do my best and I can make it right. And so we had a really beautiful time in Florida, and the second part of it after, spending a couple weeks with family was going to do grid work. And that all came about the very last second. But it was to do some grid work in some places of power, which is my favorite kind of life experience. I love traveling to sacred sites and connecting with the energy, receiving the DNA activations and upgrades, and putting my essence and frequency signature into the living library of Gaia. It's what I live for. I love it so much. And my daughter loves it too. And we work together, which is really cool. And so we got to experience that. And then we got back to our home where we had not paid rent, and I made another choice to leave that resonance. And it was as if, on some level, energetically, I was being ejected from that timeline. But in the 3D, it felt like I was making a decision to exit my agreement, to walk away from a life that I had begun to build there, slowly but surely, and to come back to my hometown, which I'd sworn I was never going to do again. Careful what you say you'll never do, because it's almost a guarantee that Spirit's going to say, oh yeah? Well, how about now? The cool thing is, I've had a lot of time to think and feel into so many things. I could talk to you for probably 12 hours about this trip, about everything that I experienced and the synchronicities and all of it, but I see we are already at 41 minutes. Wow. If you're still here, thank you so much for just witnessing and hearing me. But in summary, coming back to my hometown, staying at my parents' house, which I also swore I was never going to do again, Spirit showed me that I could step outside of myself and be in total service to everyone around me. And I was called forth to be in service pretty hardcore for like 3 weeks, right? After arriving. And I was so happy to be outside of my own mind and judgments and things like that. It was really nice to just be in service. And then, as time goes on, we're helping a friend get her place ready to sell so that we can stay there for a little while in this place. And so I did a lot of work up front, and then the process just came almost to a full halt, which was a grand test in patience, right? So the monotony started to kick in a little bit, the mundane. Once the dopamine hits from being of service and, feeling gratified from, doing things, and then all the work into the place that we're going to move in, I couldn't go any further with what I could do, so I had to step back with that. And then I'm like, okay, what now? Spirit, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Oh my God, what am I doing here? Did I fail? Oh my God, I'm in, Houston, Texas. I'm living at my parents' house. Oh my God, what have I done? And like all these questions start to come up, and the doubt and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm on a bad timeline. Like, where did you jump? Oh man, I made some pretty big jumps, like 3 pretty large timeline jumps, really, relatively speaking, quickly. And so I'm like, what in the actual is going on here? And then it came to me one day. Maybe you'll resonate with this. As time-space traveling, multidimensional creatures that we are, sometimes when we make a big enough jump, doing the big enough thing, the so outside of the norm thing, we jump to another timeline of experience. And it's such a big jump from where we were. And our energy is there, right? Existing in this other alternate reality. And yet, in order to sustain that reality and sustain that frequency, there's maybe some cleanup of some lower patterns that would maybe bring self-sabotage or, weird incidences to throw you off track or whatever. So going where I envision going, making a giant leap in order to move that reality forward, landing. Now, how do I sustain this? Well, I sustain it by cleaning up vibrationally, where I have held beliefs that are in contradiction to that new way of being. How do I do that? Go home to your family's house. Like, if that doesn't test you and cause you to go into the lower, places, and I don't mean this in any kind of disrespectful way to family. I appreciate, oh my goodness, I've learned so much. I've been tested, trials, tribulations, things, and also joy and bliss and so much camaraderie and, just healing. There was healing that happened. Healing that needed to happen. I got to witness patterns and where I got them, and then do some cleanup there and here and there, and all of these things began to make themselves apparent. That you didn't fuck up, you didn't fail, you didn't jump to a bad timeline. You jumped exactly where you're meant to be, and now you're experiencing the cleanup of patterns and geometries that could have brought you back down. You're just diving straight into it, and it's the shadow, it's the underworld, and you're doing that cleanup so that you can actually have a foundation that's not going to fall down. It's going to withhold anything and everything. You're really building your foundation, and it's what I've wanted in this life more than anything. And it's what I have perceived to lack more than anything. And so, thank you for listening to this story. And like I said, there are keys in it for those who have ears to hear. It was a massive initiation into trusting on a deeper level than I have ever trusted. And more than even trusting the cosmos, trusting source, was trusting my own connection to it, my own guidance, and going like this to anything, anyone that has anything else to say about it, because it doesn't matter what you think or feel about my path, my journey, my connection. It doesn't matter. You don't like it, well, off you go. And I mean that with love, always, of course. I love myself, and I learned to love myself even more through this experience. I'm still, every single day, learning how to love myself even more. And what I'm presenting to you right now is only one layer of my experience that has been happening for the past 2 years, I would say. Oh my goodness. So rich, so beautiful, so amazing. I am so happy to be alive in this body, in this time, as a human, angelic, on the planet, sharing space with all of you. Thank you so much for being here and just being a part of me and of this. It's really beautiful, and we are all in this together, doing our part, playing our part with our absolutely amazing, unique tones, sounds, hues, colors. It's so wonderful. I honor you all. I thank you so much for being here and for witnessing. Bless your everything. In Lakesh.